For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother. By this we know that we love the children of God, when we love God and obey His commandments. Crossroads, they are there for all of us. We may move along from day to day, easily walking in the sunshine, enjoying the view, feeling at peace. And then it comes, a crossroad, a choice point. There we stand, frozen to the spot. Which way now? Right? Left? Straight? What weights down each of those choices? Which way does our heart call us to go? Which way makes sense? Which way is God's way? The answers aren't easy. A crossroad can bring daunting spiritual pain, and it can bring us to our knees. It can even bring us to destruction. Tonight, we have an expert on the crossroad of obedience. He was there in the garden with Jesus when Jesus faced that crossroad, when he confronted his part in God's plan of salvation. We welcome the disciple John, called the disciple Jesus loved. Welcome, John. Can you tell us something about the night in the garden when you saw and what you learned from Jesus?
I'm almost embarrassed to be here. Yes, I was in the garden with Jesus, but I certainly didn't understand what was going on. And I certainly was of no help to him there.
Did you see him praying?
Yes, he went away to pray, and he asked for us to go along to pray with him. I could tell he was struggling, but after the meal, after the cups of wine, we drank with the Passover meal and the walk in the garden in the dark. I just couldn't keep my eyes open. I fell asleep.
Didn't you understand the terror Jesus was facing?
Not really. Not there. Not then. It was not unusual for us to go as a group and to join Jesus in prayer. It happened often. Jesus was busy at prayer many times as we traveled with him. I just didn't know what was going on there in the garden.
Do you understand now?
Now? Certainly. I wish I could go back to the garden and do it all over again. I wish I could join Jesus in his prayer, in his struggle. I know that it would be different now. Jesus was facing the most difficult crossroad in his life. He was staring at reality, the suffering that he'd have to endure, facing the cross, and most terribly, facing it alone.
Was it really different from all the other times he had to choose between his own way and God's way? Was his choice to obey in spite of pain so unusual?
Not really. We know that Jesus was often tempted in his life to step away from God's plan for him, God's plan for us. Satan harassed him like he had done in the wilderness with a way out, a way to avoid the suffering. Just bow down and worship me, Satan said, and I will give you all of this. I'll give it all to you. He was offering a shortcut that avoided the cross. But Jesus sent him away and clung to the path that God had set for him.
What does Jesus' choice to obey, in spite of the terror that faced him, what does that mean to you now?
It inspires me and convicts me We must do the same for you.
How do you mean?
I'm certainly not unique. I faced a crossroad like Jesus did many times in my life. Oh, not with the world or the weight of the world on my shoulders, but with my own heart in conflict over which way to go. I faced that crossroad every time I came to a place where I heard the voice in me say, you know what will happen to you. Choose to obey God's claim on your life. Life you will be hurt. You will be excluded. You will be scorned. You will be persecuted. Every time I stood at the crossroad, I remember Jesus in the garden and asked him to stay with me, stay awake with me, and pray for me.
Did that happen often?
In the years after he ascended, all of us who followed him were faced with the choice to follow or deny him. If we denied him, we could escape the threats, the persecution, even the death that faced us. We were outcast, rejected by many of our brothers, and threatened often with the suffer or death. I asked God's help to remain faithful and encourage others to do the same in my book, Revelation. I wrote, "Do not fear what you are about to suffer. Behold, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison that you may be tested, and for 10 days you will be and have tribulation. Be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life."
But we aren't persecuted. We don't face that kind of crossroad.
You face the crossroad of obedience every time you confront a choice that asks, will you follow your own way, the way of the world, the way others push you, the way you think you will be easiest and most pleasurable for you? Or will you follow the way Jesus will lead you, the way of obedience?
But those kinds of choices happen every day.
And that is why you need the power and presence of God's Spirit every day. That's what Jesus was doing there in the garden, on the cross. He was bringing forgiveness and new life to you by God's power. And the sacrifice of Jesus, you begin each day new and forgiven, new and able to make the choice of obedience.
And how can we make those right choices?
Here's another thing I wrote in my gospel. Jesus said, "Abide in me, and I in you." The same Jesus who struggled there in the garden, the one who went to the cross, the one who rose, is there in our hearts, with us at our crossroads in our choices.
Thank you, John, for those words of encouragement. We will remember with you and rejoice with you for what Jesus has done and what he will do in us and through us. The theme for today's worship service is obedience. In our first reading, the Apostle Paul is writing from prison. But instead of worrying about his personal circumstances, Paul tells the congregation to live a life of humility, gentleness, and patience, bearing with one another in love. And he goes on to make a significant theological teaching. But the point is that even as Paul is suffering in the harsh reality of prison, he looks outside of his own suffering. He looks beyond the worries of his own life, and he gives a word of encouragement and guidance to the church in Ephesus. And then in our gospel reading, Jesus is in the Garden of Gethsemane. He knows that he is about to be arrested and executed. He knows that he has the power to get out of this thing. But Jesus chooses to submit to the excruciatingly painful end of his own life for the sake of the whole world. But even as he is submitting to this terrible end for his own life, Jesus' disciples are falling asleep around him. The theme for our worship service today is obedience. Obedience is the willingness to follow God's will rather than your own. The willingness to serve God's will rather than worrying about your own individual needs or desires. Obedience is not a common concept among Americans in general. We are the land of the free. We are the people who feel like we ought to be able to do what we want, when we want. We are bold and strong, and God help anyone who stands in our way. But here are two of the most spiritually powerful, most influential people in history putting their lives and needs on hold in order to serve the needs of God's people, in order to serve the will of God. That is not a natural thing for you to do. You may think that you are a nice person. You may feel like you are a caring person. But when somebody calls you up and asks you to put your life on hold so that you can do something for them, you might feel very put out. Jesus may give you salvation and eternal life as a free gift. And that is all well and good. But then when Jesus says that he expects you to love and care for your neighbor in a very real and tangible way, that's when you might step back a bit and say, well, how much do you want? You want to start negotiating this contract for eternal life. You want to start checking out with God, well, now just how much is yours and how much is mine? And Jesus, he just smiles. Sometimes it is an understanding smile, and sometimes it is a little bit of a sad smile. Because Jesus knows how hard it is for you. He knows how difficult it can be for you to truly put yourself aside. But in answer to Jesus' question, how much does Jesus want? He simply says, I want it all. I want all of you. Jesus says, I want you to work for me rather than for yourself. I want you to think about what I want you to do rather than what you want to do. I want you all. Your thoughts, your desires, your relationships, your time, your hopes, your dreams, your money, and your entire future. This past week, several of our members chose to give up their time and money. They chose to put their lives on hold and go to work at a mission site in West Virginia. They went to help people rebuild their homes after an extremely devastating flood last year. And our congregation has chosen to monetarily support that mission trip. Now I'm not saying that all the people that went on our mission trip are perfect saints, but such a sacrifice of their time and their comfort and their personal lives does illustrate the kind of caring that Jesus is talking about. You are not only sending a check, you're also putting some skin in the game. The same is true for each of you here today. You may not be able to drop everything and go on a mission trip to West Virginia, but Jesus is asking you to be obedient to God as best you can, in every way that you can. That does not mean that you should not take care of yourself or your life. Being obedient to God's will for your life might actually mean taking better care of yourself and your life. God might actually want you to take more seriously the fact that you are not eating enough fruits and vegetables. God might actually want you to take seriously the health suggestion of every doctor that you figure out how to get more exercise in your day. And yes, maybe spending every spare moment working may make you more money. It may make you look better to your boss, and it may make your yard look prettier. But not spending time relaxing or enjoying some hobby, well, kind of reminds you of the old phrase, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Obedience. What does obedience to God look like for you? Maybe it means spending less time on Instagram or Facebook. Maybe it means choosing not to post any negative comments. Maybe obedience means finally being willing to talk to a mental health therapist or a sleep therapist. Maybe obedience to God means pushing yourself to go and visit someone who's in the hospital or someone who's laid up at home. Whatever obedience to God means to you, true obedience usually pushes you further than you would normally choose to go. Being willing to listen to some opinion other than your own, or being willing to think about how it might feel to be that person that you're putting down. Whatever obedience to God means to you, one of the main blessings that you receive from obedience is that God reminds you that you are not the center of the world, or God will usually show you someone or something that you have never seen or felt before. On our mission trip to West Virginia, we got to see how hard it can be to recover from a true life disaster. And we got to meet a few everyday people who are struggling to live with almost nothing. The average income for that area is $15,000 for a female and $20,000 for a male. It was an eye-opening experience. In the same way, when you choose the path of obedience to God, God will show you people and realities that you have never seen before. In the name of Jesus.